Welcome back.
Welcome back to this video podcast that never exists in an audio form only.
Do you think it ever will?
Yes,
Okay.
that is the plan. And the good thing is about these video files is that I can always, even if I completely delete the file, that's applesauce, by the way, going nutso on a scratching post.
It is not me eating this mini marshmallow.
No, it's not the marshmallows, and it's not the bowl of marshmallows and chocolate chips Tashina has that are making all this ruckus.
I mean, that was.
Yeah. What I was saying was, I could, even delete it completely off my computer. I could still download the video from YouTube and then strip the audio from the video.
And to put on places like Spotify or something if we wanted, right?
Yeah.
Do you
Sure.
have to pay to put stuff on Spotify? I don't know how that works.
I've never looked into it. I'd be surprised. But the thing is, I think generally with podcasts is it's more like you're paying for the hosting.
Yeah.
So if we were going to put it somewhere, we'd have to pay for hosting. But I don't know that I would really be surprised if you have to pay to put stuff on Spotify. I don't think they're that big.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what kind of tea did you make us?
Lemon echinacea.
Cool. So, we ordered some microphones.
Yep. Well, you ordered some.
It's true.
They're not here yet,
No.
obviously.
We have a bunch of Amazon credit, and I finally broke down and used it to buy some other stuff we need for Logical Harmony, office stuff, some laundry soap, and some microphones. So the audio should be dramatically improved the next time we do one of these.
Yeah.
Well, if the next time we do one of these is after the microphones have,
When are they
have
supposed
arrived.
to be here? This weekend?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think at the latest Monday.
Oh, okay. That's not bad.
No. What day is it? Wednesday? Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Yeah. Since we don't have Amazon Prime, I went with the free shipping option, which is kind of a long shipping window, but free. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
We were messing with the audio, doing some audio tests, and I'm just so excited.
Me too. Also, by the way, if that's being picked up, that's Juniper.
Yeah, now Applesauce is done with the scratching post, but Juniper is now going buck wild in a litter box.
Wiping down the sides of it,
Yeah,
as is her way.
as is her way.
Okay, so,
So, also, do you want to talk about what these are?
yeah, so the other day, Justin got us these little journals that I can keep in my purse. He can keep his in his pocket or wherever. So that way, throughout the day, throughout the week, we can write down things to talk about on the podcast. Because often throughout the week, we do think of things.
True.
But, you know how it is when you're busy. You don't always remember when you sit down to film it or record it or whatever you're doing. So, we each have some things written down.
Yeah.
I think they're probably very different.
Oh, I'm dying to know what you thought was podcast worthy.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, of course.
How about I share one, then you share one?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So, the first thing,
Uh-oh.
I was watching, some paranormal shows lately, as is my way. And I noticed on almost every single one for recording, voices that you can't audibly hear, they actually use this same recorder that we're using right now.
Is it this exact one? Because there are a few different models that look very much like this.
To me, it looked like this exact one. I could be wrong.
Well, in that episode of Seeing Sounds, I don't know if he's calling them Seeing Sounds anymore, but in that Dan Mace video where he did the Eminem song he played it with his girlfriend's hair ties, or his fiance's hair ties, that was the same exact model.
It looked the same to me.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I
wouldn't be
am not
surprised.
well-versed, but yeah, I thought that was super interesting. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and we did see them using it in some other show we were watching together. It was Josh Gates.
Expedition X?
Is that what it is? Where
The
they
new
were...
one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they were going into the cave and...
Yeah.
Right. Remember?
Wait, into the cave? No, that was No,
Yeah,
no.
they had set up all the camera traps. No, it was definitely his show.
Oh, with the okay, I get what you're talking about.
Yeah,
The,
what
like,
were they looking for?
They were looking for, I forget what the regional term would be, but essentially a Sasquatch.
Same
But
squanch?
it was in Southeast Asia, and there are regional terms for them because they are all slightly different from one another.
Right.
So the descriptions would lead you to believe that they are slightly different types of the same species.
Right.
So that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
So it was on Expedition X. That's one of the shows that I saw it on.
Oh, so they're... Yeah, that would make sense, because
Yeah.
they're
They were
continuing to
using
use it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But then I've seen it on some other shows too.
Hmm.
So
Sweet.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great recorder.
I just thought that was. I like fun coincidences like that.
Yeah,
Okay, what's one of yours?
I like fun coincidences like that too. Especially because you're like, oh, the gear I use doesn't suck.
Yeah.
And this one, like I was telling you this morning, we got it for $100 on Amazon. I think it was $109 on eBay, but still,
Yeah.
dirt cheap.
Which was crazy.
Yeah,
So
it's like
'cause
brand new.
my thought too was I was like, man, if I did ever find a paranormal investigation group out here that's active, I don't have an EMF meter. I don't have infrared. But I have the same microphone that they use on some stuff. So like
And you have a lot of camera equipment.
yeah.
I have a lot of
You have
camera
a lot of
equipment.
camera equipment.
We have a lot of-
Logical harmony. Yeah. So
Well,
anyway, that was
debatable.
my thought. Was being like, man, I actually have some gear that professionals use, and that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So, I guess it's my turn.
Yeah. I'm assuming completely different direction here.
Yeah, so I have a kind of a sad one to talk about, but I'm going to start with the funny one.
Okay.
I already told you this story, and I'm disappointed that I did because I should have waited.
Okay.
But it was... So the other night I was doing a shift washing dishes at our friend's restaurant to raise a little extra money and because they needed some help. And afterward I was going to get a ride home, and generally I used Lyft. But I don't even have another ride-sharing app installed on my phone. But the rides were like, a ride that should have been $12 was like $37 or something like that. And it was like a 25-minute wait, and I hadn't anticipated waiting outside that long, so I didn't bring a jacket, I didn't bring a sweater. I was just literally in a t-shirt, and it was like 34 outside. I'm like, this sucks, I don't want to wait this long. So I called Tashina and asked her if she could use, we have an Uber account, but we never really use it.
Yeah, I hate using Uber, but in
Yeah.
some areas there are more Uber drivers than Lyft drivers, so
Yeah.
sometimes it's a necessary evil.
Why do you hate using Uber? Or is this going to get dark and sad and weird and political?
Yeah.
Oh.
People know.
I mean, aren't they all terrible?
They're all terrible, but I think on the scale, as far as like standing up for their riders' rights and protecting their riders, Uber's way worse. As far as like stuff for the drivers, I think Uber has a worse reputation. And as far as like political ties, I would say Uber's worse.
Yikes.
So that's why we try and not use it.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like in this case, he literally could not get a ride.
Right.
So it was the only option.
Right. So I asked Tashina if she could get a ride for me through the Uber app, and she did. And what we didn't realize is that it basically sends all of my contact information to the driver so that they can get in touch with me when they find me. So when I got into the car, I was like, oh, hey, Heather, or whatever her name is, Heather. And she's like, Justin? And I'm like, yeah, great. She's like, okay, cool. And then there's kind of like a pause. And she's like, wait, Justin loves me?
So years ago, or do you want to tell them?
No,
I'll let you tell
please.
it.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry.
I don't want to. I want you to do it.
Years ago, Justin changed his name to that in my phone.
So that every time I call...
Yeah, I would get this sweet little reminder that Justin loves me. And I've kept it that way because it is really sweet and it's really nice and it's really cute. But I had no idea that that's how it would display to the Uber driver.
It's pretty funny.
It's super funny. I like that they brought it up. Like,
Yeah.
is this your last name?
Well, yeah, it was... I don't know if she brought it up. I don't know why she brought it up because it was kind of weird a little bit.
Yeah.
And anyway, I was like, oh, haha, it must have imported my contact, Anyway.
My girlfriend has me as that in her phone, and she's like, this is fucking volunteered. That was a good story.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
What else do you have to talk about?
I think you should do another one.
I should?
Yeah, because you have more on your list than I have on mine.
Yeah, that's true. Well, the sad one is, I guess it's not sad, but we went and voted the other day, and it made me think of our friend Scott, who is no longer with us. Because when Bernie was running for president last time, Scott was very adamant about Bernie and trying to spread the word. And, I think maybe some people don't remember that Bernie was not as well known, obviously, as he is now.
Yeah.
And so our friend Scott was taking it really seriously and calling to talk to people about it. And I think he volunteered for the campaign a little bit. And anyway, so when we went and voted, it just made me think of him. I mean, it's kind of like bittersweet because on the one hand, it's like, I wish Scott would be so excited.
Yeah.
He would be so happy with how well Bernie has done and
The fact that he's running again and
Yeah.
has so much more support and is so much more well known.
Absolutely.
Because Scott was so passionate about it.
Yeah. So it's like cool to think about how excited he would be, but then really sad because it's such a stark reminder of the fact that he's not here. Yeah.
No, I understand. Stuff like that's hard. Because you're like, man, I wish I could share this with them.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is his Facebook page is still up. So I went and left a thing. Just.
That's sweet of you.
Yeah.
I bet his parents appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder sometimes, if his family appreciates... Because it's not super uncommon for me to go to his page. Pretty much anytime I'm thinking of him, I'll go to his page and say something, Normally when I would pick up the phone and, call a friend or text them and be like, hey, I'm thinking about you. Hope you're doing okay.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it's something that they enjoy seeing or if it's just, painful.
Maybe a mix of both.
Yeah.
I mean, I know for my friend Josh, his parents have expressed that they're extremely grateful for it because it shows them how many lives he impacted and how much he was loved by so many people. And that I think it's really hard for them too, but I'm sure on some level it's the same as Scott's parents, where it's great to see that.
Yeah. Yep.
Man, that is a sad one. But I'm glad you shared it. I think that's good to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a thing.
Yep. It is a thing.
So, you have something a little more...
Man, I don't know how to follow that up without not sound I feel like no matter how I follow that up, I'm going to sound like kind of a dick.
Why? I mean, I can follow it up
so,
if you want.
It's just something so deep and serious and heavy and important to talk about. And I feel like what I have to say would just seem so fluffy after that I feel like it'd be, I don't know.
I think there's
appropriate.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And I think that if we were, at his celebration of life and I had just said all that and you were about to follow it up with a story about whatever you have written, that might not be appropriate. But I think in this context,
all right,
it's perfectly appropriate.
All right.
And I can go if you want, if you don't.
Yeah, go ahead. Do another one.
Sure.
Break the ice.
Okay, well,
Look at applesauce, by the way.
What's that?
Look at applesauce, by the way.
I don't see her. Oh, there she is. She's hard to see in the dark. So I wrote. Here's a note. I've been listening to the Office Ladies podcast, which I have mixed feelings about, but mostly I love.
Okay.
Mixed feelings is stronger than it should sound.
Okay.
I don't even know why I said that. I'm really enjoying it.
Okay.
It's not that I have mixed feelings about it. It's that I'm interested about how the show came about, how they decided to do it. And I don't mean how they're oh, this is a cool show, but the logistics behind, did they approach a studio? Did a studio approach them? Did the studio approach them and already have the idea? Did they have the idea? Like I'm interested in the logistics of that. And every time I listen to the podcast, I wonder what it is. And I think maybe because the podcast dives so deep into the behind the scenes of the show, The Office, it makes me wonder about the behind the scenes of the show, The Office Ladies podcast.
So I've heard a couple rumors that it was put together and they were doing casting for it, like reaching out to the cast, trying to see what duo would be interested that they thought people would actually listen to.
That makes sense.
And then part of what attracted them about this duo is they're people you, based on their characters, would not expect them to be friends.
But they're legit, like, best friends in real life.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, that's my understanding, is that it's a rumor. It's not confirmed that they had reached out to
wouldn't be
different people
surprised.
at the office to be like, hey, would you and this person? What about you and this person? Because a lot of the people, like John Krasinski, for example, he's way too busy. Like,
damn, wow.
It's no offense, but he's like, you know what I mean?
Yikes.
Like,
these two ladies got nothing to do.
That's not what I'm saying. But, like, I think, too, they also didn't want someone like him that's doing a lot still. They wanted someone that was, like, still very much known for that character.
Yeah, I feel you.
So, like, it could have been Kevin. It could have been Oscar.
Yeah.
Rainn Wilson, I don't think they would have. Maybe. But
I feel like in real life, Rainn Wilson is a pretty, like, actually kind of reserved person. And I don't know. Like, I almost feel like he's so different in real life than from the characters that he plays that I don't know how a whole audio podcast would go. And he also comes across to me as somebody who is doing is maybe taking a lot of space from stuff like that, like focusing on other stuff, as where I think Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey, I think they've both kind of continued to be actors and kind of like be out there in that world.
Yeah.
So.
The first time, have I told you about the first time I saw Rainn Wilson in anything?
No.
It was in that first Rob Zombie movie, House of a Thousand Corpses.
What? He's in that?
Yeah. He was like, I think he was the first one to die. But it was so creepy, but he was so, okay, I hate that movie. I'm just going to put that out there. I'm not a fan. But he was so perfectly casted to be in that movie.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
You don't want to see it. It's gross. It's terrible.
Okay.
It is.
I will continue not seeing it.
Yeah, I wish I'd never seen it. But I remember seeing
What a
it and
glowing
then seeing
review.
The Office later and being like, wait a minute, that's that guy from that movie I was forced to watch.
Yeah.
Like, huh.
Yeah. So, sorry, I was going somewhere with that.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I just, as soon as I started talking about who they are, I just got completely went blank. But the reason I wrote this down, here's my note. I'll just read it. It says, reality show cam ops in The Office. Listen to Office Ladies for more cine nuggets. So I wrote that. I know. When I first read that, I was like, what the hell? Oh, I remember what I was going to say, but I'll get back to that. But it has to do with Meg and Nick. So,
Meg and Nick?
Yeah. So, The Office Ladies podcast, it's interesting to listen to. It's interesting to listen to. And there's a lot of interesting things about how it was shot in there. Like, for example, that a lot of their camera operators, I guess, were originally from reality TV because they really wanted it to be shot like a reality show. And I think I told you this afternoon, where some of the direction for the camera ops was nothing more than that character is interested in something over there, go find out what it is, like go find out what the story is.
That's so smart.
It's so rad, and it speaks to the level of, I mean, everything about it. It speaks to the writing, it speaks to the camera ops, and just, the training or the experience that they had working on reality shows and being able to do that and just on a reality show, that person, something's going on over there, this person's interested, move from one to the other, figure out the story. It's just really fascinating to know. Yeah. So it's definitely worth listening to, just to hear those kind of small little things like that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And just hearing some of the the interactions between the cast, like how Angela and the guy, and Oscar, who plays Oscar, have been friends forever and have acted in multiple things together. And then it's so interesting to then see their dynamic in the office where they're basically best friends.
Huh.
Slash
I don't even remember that. Yeah.
So it was man, that's amazing that they have this personal history, and then it's clear that their characters have this really deep bond.
Oh, okay. That actually reminds me of another interesting nugget that I heard that I wanted to share with you, which is that the the neighbors are... Anyway, the person and or the people who wrote and recorded the theme song are in the show a couple times.
What?
One or more of them are in Kevin's band Scrantonicity.
That's amazing. Wait, Scrantonicity or Scrantonicity 2? Probably Scrantonicity.
Yeah, I don't know now that you ask. And then there were a couple other things where I don't remember the episodes, but I love how much the show seemed to mingle. Like Phyllis, for example, we talked about, Phyllis wasn't an actor. She was, I think, in casting, and then they cast Phyllis to, or maybe I don't remember what.
She was on the crew though in some capacity.
Right.
Or Toby was a writer.
Yeah.
And they were was it they had him fill in, or they were hey, we need someone as
I
this
think
role?
I think his role was supposed to be small.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, but they just loved the dynamic between him and Michael, and so they kept him on.
Mm-hmm.
Funny.
And then through that too, it becomes apparent that all the people who were writers on the show that also were characters, that's why they worked in the annex.
Right.
Is so they could go long periods of time without you seeing them.
Is it lame that we're going into so much detail about someone else's podcast?
Probably.
I don't know, though. I mean, their podcast is about a show.
Yeah, that's true. How very meta.
How very meta.
But yeah, if you liked The Office, it's great to listen to.
Mm-hmm. So, I remember the thing I was going to say about my thoughts on the logistics and all that, which was that the Nick Offerman and Megan Mullally podcast is also produced by the same company, Earwolf, and that both that show and The Office Ladies started in November. And I'm very curious to know what other TV show and celebrity-based podcast this production company came out with in the same time period. I think that's pretty fascinating to think about.
That is. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm surprised, what's her name, Aubrey Plaza, doesn't have one about Parks and Rec. I could see that being a thing.
Well, if you want to hear some Parks and Rec stuff, there's an episode with Rita, who plays... what is her name on Parks and Rec?
What does she look like?
Treat Yourself.
Oh!
She's in
I want to
Good
say her
Girls.
name's Gail, but I don't think her name's not Gail.
No.
Her name's Gail and something else that she's in.
And I also think that Gail...
Donna.
Donna, that's her character's name. Donna.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
Came to me.
Donna, yeah. Absolutely. Anyway, there's an episode with her on it. I haven't listened to it yet, but she's there.
Nice.
Yep.
Very nice.
All right, what you got? What you got on that list of yours?
All right. Okay, so a couple things that I was very excited about.
Lay them on me.
So I don't know if you remember, in one of the first ones of these that we ever did, I talked about how much I would absolutely love it if there was some sort of crossover with Josh Gates' Expedition Unknown and anyone from Ghost Hunters / Ghost Nation. Ghost Nation in its form now, basically.
Yeah.
On the most recent episode of Expedition X, which is Josh's team, he is not on the show, which is a bummer, because he actually, I think it was on Destination Truth, he did go to this island of the dolls and did an investigation there, and they covered it on Expedition X, and they brought in Jason from Ghost Nation. And I was like, this is great. I mean, Josh is an executive producer of Ghost Nation, so clearly business-wise they have ties. But it was so cool to actually see that like come to fruition. It was not the most satisfying episode, I will say, but it was still super interesting, and it was really exciting to see that crossover.
Is that the guy that you've talked to, or is that someone else?
No, that's the one it's the only one I've not talked to.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I was just thinking it'd be cool to talk to them and be like, oh hey, I just saw that. Like, I've been waiting for this crossover.
No. But Jason was the guy who like started TAPS, which is what became Ghost Hunters, and then he's the one that started Ghost Nation after like they had approached him about doing a Ghost Hunters reboot, and he was like, I'll do it if like Steve and Tango can come with me. Because like that's who I actually do this stuff with. And they're like, no, we want to cast everyone else. So he's like, no thanks, I'm out. Like, I'm not doing it without them.
Thank you.
That's not authentic.
Yeah.
And then Travel Channel approached him, or he approached them, I don't really know. And they're like, hey, we'll give you everything you want. I mean, whether or not that's how it went down, I don't know for sure on the speech. But he has said in an interview about what his experience was with the reboot of Ghost Hunters. So I'm pretty stoked that Ghost Nation was something that he was like, basically like, if I can't do it in an authentic way, I'm not going to do it at all.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's super awesome. But anyway, I was just super excited to see that crossover. And I would love it if they could do more of that.
Yeah.
I think it's tough on Expedition X for me personally because they aren't doing these deep dive things. Like on Ghost Nation, they go and they spend a week. But this Expedition X was literally, because it's more of a restricted site too, it was one overnight. So when Josh first went there weren't as many rules and regulations, and so you could be there multiple days. But now, I don't know what the reasons are, but they're very rigid and strict about it. So they had to get even special permission to be there for one night.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it was super interesting to see, like, just the knowledge that Jason brought to it, and, like, you know, like, it's in the swamp, basically. So they're going to the place, and Jason was like, okay, so, like, I guess ethylene gas, I might be wrong, it's a byproduct of methane gas, and it can cause hallucinations, and for you to, like, see things and hear things. So just even when they're traveling to the place, Jason was like, yeah, have you guys tested the gas levels here? Like, this is a swamp. All this stuff would be there that would make people see and hear things. So that was just super interesting.
Yeah.
They did get some interesting stuff on video, but I don't feel like it was enough to really be much of anything.
Nothing conclusive.
No. I mean, it was interesting. You can't get much in one night anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I feel that if activity is real, it is pretty rare still. So the odds of getting, like, they got some weird shadows and some weird movement, which is interesting. But I don't think it's enough to be like, I think that place has so much more folklore behind it, / all the dolls that are there add to this creepiness factor.
Yeah.
That I think is probably more mental for people. Yeah.
Sounds creepy.
It's super creepy.
Yeah.
It's just a visually creepy place. Do you want me to tell you about it? No.
Not particularly.
Okay,
I don't feel like being creeped out right now.
Cool.
Thanks, though.
Yep. You're welcome.
Appreciate the offer.
Well, if any of you viewers,
if any of you reading, any of you reading the transcript of this video,
subtitles.
Yeah. For those of you reading the subtitles,
if any of you are interested, definitely look it up because it is creepy and weird and fascinating.
You're creepy and weird and fascinating.
Whether or not there's anything paranormal there, I don't know.
Did you throw a little bit of water in there? Thank you. Oh, just from the Berkey. I don't mean hot water.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, thank you. There's a water thing right behind Tashina. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the crossover.
Yeah, it was exciting to see. I've been waiting. Once I saw that Josh Gates was an executive producer of Ghost Nation, I figured it was just a matter of time. I really want to see him and one of the guys on screen together, because I think that together that would just be super interesting to see their dynamic.
Yeah.
I don't know if that'll ever happen though. I feel like Expedition Unknown doesn't really do the paranormal stuff. I feel like Josh started Expedition X. I think he maybe missed Destination Truth, or knew that a lot of his fans missed it, and probably was seeing so much stuff happening that, you know, he kind of did that as a way to still be involved in that world.
Yeah.
But
Maybe he's also just like sick of traveling, just wants to hang out.
Yeah, totally.
Like,
he travels so much for Expedition Unknown.
And he's been doing that kind of show for years, right? Like, I'm sure his family is like, dude, you can stay home.
Yeah, I
mean, I'm sure they're very supportive, but still, when you love someone, you want to be around them, and I'm sure it's tough to be traveling all the time.
And he has 2 kids, like, yeah. So
Quasi cupcakes.
That was something I wrote down to talk about because I was pretty excited about it.
Good. Glad you shared that. I think that one thing we should have put on the filming schedule today that we didn't put on the schedule is you doing Get Ready With Me, talking about your paranormal interests.
Yeah, we should have.
Yeah.
It's tough. I want to do those, but I also want to do some research into things first, because I don't want to misspeak about something, and like I want to make sure I'm more focused. Like, okay, if I were to do on like Sasquatch as a topic, for example, like when you think about Sasquatch sightings in different regions of the U.S., they do have slightly different elements to them, or like even like worldwide, like it's not just Sasquatch. You have the Sasquatch, you have the Yeti, you have all the others. Like,
I think though that even what you're saying right now is not something that normal everyday people know. And so, hold on, you have a little eyelash. And so I think that it would be interesting if you just said what you do know. And I would I would add that I think that's great that you want to do that, but not to the extent that it prevents you from creating content.
That's true. I'm not trying to compete with like Kendall Ray. I mean, she doesn't do these videos anyways, but I'm saying I'm not trying to do these like 45-minute versions of things covering it all. Like,
yeah, the whole point is to see if it's fun for you and if it's fun for the audience. So if you put a ton of work into it, and you know that means you don't do the first video for 6 months.
Yeah, that's true. That's not worth it.
Yeah, then it makes way more sense to just try it and see.
Yeah, which I've been thinking about. Not in relation to this, but also not. When I was a kid, I had this book called Oregon's Ghosts and Monsters. It was written by Mike Helm. I don't know why I specifically remember his name, but I got it at this bookshop on the coast, and it was through like an independent press. And there was a story in it about this guy that was nicknamed Bandage Man, who was like in Cannon Beach. But anyway, the more I think about it, the more I realize a lot of the correlations of like the sights and the sounds and the smells associated with Bandage Man match up with a Sasquatch and the reported sights, sounds, and smells. And so I find that very fascinating, because I'm like, this was supposedly a person who was involved in like a car accident and just took off into the woods. And then apparently like stayed around the area and would like be creepy towards people out in the woods, or like break into people's homes, or like kill their animals or something. Like, it's all things that match up with a Sasquatch. Not that Sasquatch break into people's homes, but like, you know, like people would report like, oh, I like heard these like groaning noises, and then I smelled this really foul stench and saw this like huge thing out on my porch banging around, and then the next day I realized like 2 of my chickens were gone and had been like broken out of the thing.
Sam Squanch.
Anyway, it's just super interesting to think of that, and I'm like, man, how did that get, like, what's the difference between that and Sasquatch? What's the true history of Bandage Man, quote unquote? Like, was there ever any actual car accident?
Yeah, I feel like these are good questions for your video.
Oh, okay.
Where you do your makeup and talk about Sam Squanch.
All right. Good point.
If you let it all out here.
Yeah, I won't have it for the video.
Yeah, exactly. Gotta keep that inside.
Someone over there had an opinion.
Junie breathed very heavily. What else you got?
The other thing that I got is that I'm in the process of securing another brand deal, a sponsorship.
Nice.
And it's stuff that I have done totally on my own. Like, just reached out to the brand, pitched them, or actually this one they reached out, but just like negotiating and stuff, and it's been really rewarding to have that experience. And I feel like really like I don't want to say validating, but just like it's made me feel a little more confident when it comes to doing sponsored content and to pitching brands. To be like, wow, these are 3 different situations where in all the cases I was expecting the brand to say no.
So this is exactly why whenever you suggest lowering our rates, I say no. The confidence that you're feeling and what you're going through, because correct me if I'm wrong, but what you start to realize is if the brand sees your value, they see your value. It's not about the money.
Yeah, totally. And I said no to one the other week. I told you about this, that they were on the sponsored content platform saying that they were doing paid things. We had a few exchanges, and then of them being like, okay, what type of content, blah, blah, blah. And then they were like, oh, actually, we don't have budget after all. Would you do all of that for free?
The old bait and switch.
Yeah, and I was like, and I said, I'm sorry, but as a small business, I don't have the budget to do all of that for free. Yeah. Like, if you want to send stuff for me to try out, it might get featured. But, like, no, I'm not going to do a video and multiple Instagram posts.
Right. I'm not going to give you thousands of dollars worth of content that we were talking about and negotiating pricing on for free now because you suddenly, your budget has suddenly evaporated.
Yeah, and you're offering me a product I could go to Ulta and buy for $20.
Yeah.
Like, if I really want it, I'll go buy it.
Yeah, that's always what's so crazy to me about it is like you're asking us to do hours and hours and hours of work for something that if we really wanted, we could go to the store and buy for $10 or $20.
Yeah.
Like, why would that be worth it in 1,000 years?
Yeah, and like if it's a brand that I love and they're like, hey, we have this campaign, we truly don't have budget, I'll do stuff a lot of the time.
Right.
But it's like when you're a brand I have no relationship with and it starts as a conversation about paid things and then it progresses and then suddenly you're like, never mind. Because how it comes off is like, well, you're on here saying you have budget. So is it that you don't have budget or that you don't have budget for me?
Right. I think too what a lot of brands or what a lot of people seem to get wrong is that it's not a black and white thing. Like it's not approve, it's not do everything for free.
No.
It's just be willing to work for free in the right situation. And it doesn't mean always saying no to free work or work in exchange for product. It's just sometimes it's worth that and sometimes it's not worth it.
Totally. And it's not demanding payment for everything either. Like, it's just figuring out what makes sense for you.
Right.
And, like, what you really want and what the value is to you, what the value is to your audience, too.
Absolutely.
Like, I think that's the big thing is, like, I think more and more audiences are understanding of sponsored content, especially when it's disclosed properly. And people do seem to go out of their way to support it. Every time we do post something sponsored, I lose followers because it does rub some people the wrong way, which is fine.
It's so funny to me.
I think the reason it rubs them the wrong way, though, is because there's so much press about people not doing it right and people not disclosing, people doing shady things. But there's very little about, how it can be a very genuine way to share something you actually love.
Yeah, well, I think the reason it's funny to me is because it's like people want the content.
Yeah.
And they're not paying for it. You know what I mean? Like we're not charging anybody to go to the website. We're not charging anybody to look at Instagram posts or go to watch your YouTube videos, all of which are incredibly helpful and are meant to be helpful, whether they're sponsored or not. And so it's just funny to me that people want that, but I think it's interesting because it's an entitlement thing. I think that's why it's funny to me, is because it says if you have a problem with sponsored content in general, this is a broad statement. Yeah. Obviously, like you said, some people are not disclosing properly, some people are being shady, some people are endorsing products they don't believe in, but that's not the majority.
No.
And if you have a problem with sponsored content, I think it says a lot more about you as a person than it does about the person doing the sponsored content. Like, are you really so entitled that you believe you should be able to consume all of this content and that the people spending hours and hours and hours and years of their life creating it don't deserve any compensation for it? Like, are you that big of a baby? Are you that entitled? It's just crazy.
Well, and also if that's your standpoint, don't consume any media. Print, TV, whatever. Don't consume any media.
Guess you better not go to the movies.
Yeah, there's product placements everywhere.
Right.
And the FTC only requires disclosure from content creators. It's not required for magazines. It's not required for online publication for
crazy.
magazines. So on their blogs, they don't have to disclose. It's not required for the TV. Like, it's not required for movies. It's literally only required for content creators.
Are you sure about that?
That's what I've read. Maybe I would say I'm like 90+% sure, but what I've read is that it's not required in any of those formats. Because I was reading an article specifically about why magazines do not disclose in their blogs.
Yeah.
And it's because they're considered like a print publication, even in their online form. So technically they don't have to. And some are starting to. I'm seeing that, like, I think it's Pop Sugar. I'm seeing them disclose, like, this was sent, these are affiliate links, this is a paid promotion.
Does Pop Sugar have a print?
No,
version?
they're online only. So I guess that was a poor example. But a lot of people see them in the same way as they see print magazines.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But yeah, it's like, I think people don't realize how much sponsored stuff they're consuming without realizing it.
Yeah.
And that, you know, every country too has different laws. So some influencers in their country, if it's not a law, they just might not be aware.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm really proud of myself, and it was a good boost to
Yeah.
get those. Because sometimes I get really discouraged and really frustrated, because it still is. Like, I'll send out like 15 pitches and hear 4 no's and 10 no responses and 1 maybe. And that's usually how it goes. And that's how it's been for a while. So it was really nice to see those ones, and especially having done it myself, because usually you're the one doing it too.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the longer you do it, the less it's going to phase you.
Yeah, because it makes me so sad sometimes, because I'll get so excited, and a lot of the times the brands reply with some super nice thing about how much they want to work together.
Yeah, of course, everybody loves you and you're amazing and your work is so invaluable until they have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's like, whoa, hold on. Well, I thought you were going to do all this in exchange for a bottle of shampoo. Now, I don't know.
Yeah. And sometimes I've countered brands and been like, okay, well, what is your budget? Or like, would you be willing to do that much in trade? And then usually they don't respond. Which I'm like, man, that means you don't see the value. That means you don't actually want to work together. So
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I would agree that probably is what it is. I think all the compliments and everything are just because they're trying to get you to promote their products for free.
Yeah.
But I would also say that I don't know that it's them personally making that decision.
Yeah,
you know what I
that's
mean?
true.
Like, I really doubt that the person, in a lot of the cases, especially with the bigger brands, the person that we're talking to and negotiating with is also the one who set the budget for that whole department, you know?
Totally. Yeah, I think one of the big lessons is that you can't take the rejections personally, but you also can't take the compliments personally.
Yeah, I mean, that's Gary Vee right there.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing is real until the contracts are written, and even
Yeah.
then,
Nothing is real.
nothing is real. Okay, you got anything else?
Mm-mm.
Really?
Those were my 3 big things.
Are you
We
serious?
just got these yesterday.
I wrote down like 8 things.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, well,
That's what I wrote down.
I expect you to bring a lot more to the table next time, little missy.
Dang. Fine. What do you think, applesauce?
Applesauce expected more from you.
No, applesauce expects nothing from me but cuddles and to be fed.
Oh, I drastically think... drastically? I think you're underestimating. I've been listening to Harry Potter a lot again.
Yeah.
Just to fall asleep, which is interesting because all the, like, you know, crazy stuff about... I say crazy, I mean, they're children's books, but you know, all the stuff about, like, killing and war, it doesn't exactly, like, lull me to sleep.
Mm-mm.
So I've been, like, cherry picking through the chapters of, like, oh, this chapter is just about a Quidditch game, and this chapter is just one long conversation. Like,
What book are you on right now?
well, that's the thing. I've been skipping between, like, 4 of them,
Ah, okay.
and not in any particular order either.
Okay. I
So-
like it.
But yeah, I've been enjoying it again. And also, you know, again, the Office Ladies podcast makes me just want to watch The Office.
Yeah.
And then I started listening, I think yesterday, to in bed with Nick and Megan,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
which I've been enjoying so far. Yeah, they're both pretty funny people,
mm-hmm.
which I think I'm going to compare it to The Office Ladies only because they're both by the same, by Earwolf,
Yeah.
and they're both sort of like celebrity, you know,
Duos.
yeah, celebrity duos and people who primarily did not get known for their podcast,
Yeah, totally.
right? Like Tim Ferriss is like, he's been one of the podcast gods forever, you know what I mean? Or like Gary Vee, he's so well known for his podcast. And anyway, my point is, I'm going to compare them, although it's not really a fair comparison. But what I will say is, Angela Kinsley and Jenna Fisher aren't comedians.
Yeah.
As where I think Nick Offerman and Megan Mullally are just like genuinely funny people.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that regard, even though their podcast format is just sort of like hanging out and talking, it's very entertaining because they're so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it because Megan Mullally always refers to the podcast as like this, just critically acclaimed, incredible, like from like the first episode, she's like, thanks for joining us on, the world's #1 podcast.
The Grammy nominated.
Yeah, for those podcast Grammys.
I said it because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, I love it. Anyway, it's a good one. It's a good podcast. Speaking of podcasts, our friend Alex was over here the other night.
Mm-hmm.
And we recorded a 2-hour and 15-minute podcast.
Yeah, that was intense.
It was.
I sat over there the whole time.
You sure did. In which he and I tasted 9 different bottles of tequila and mezcal and just talked. I thought it was amazing. Especially for having invested 2 hours and 15 minutes into it. I was going to just release it, and then something inside me was like, no, don't release it yet. Hold off.
Yeah.
And he messaged me and said, hey, can we not release that? And I said, yeah, of course. I don't want to put anything out there that you don't feel comfortable with, but I think I'm going to reach back out to him probably the next time I see him. I'll probably talk about him in person, and I'll just let him know, hey, listen. If you got that reference, let me know. And I'm just going to be like, listen, dude, before you say no, at least listen to it.
Yeah.
Just listen to the whole thing before you make me scrap this 2-hour and 15-minute episode that I thought was great. How did you feel about it?
I liked it. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was super interesting. He's a local vegan business owner. He's successfully opened and run 3 businesses. He's working on all these other cool projects. He's a cool dude, and
He really loves tequila.
he really loves tequila and mezcal, which I hate.
I learned a lot from him.
I did too. I thought it was funny too.
Mm-hmm.
I thought there was a lot of good reactions, good descriptions of the disgusting liquids we were putting into our bodies.
Yeah, you guys had a good vibe.
Yeah. So,
Oh no, my slipper.
did I pull your slipper off?
Yep.
Oh, sorry. So he and I are talking about doing a new podcast together, similar to this one, a video podcast, but we'll film it at one of the restaurants that he is a part of, where we sit down with other local vegan business owners and just have drinks and chat. I'm a little bit worried that it's not actually going to happen. And I feel like I tend to get excited and then sort of like push people into doing things that they maybe don't want to and aren't ready to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that can be healthy sometimes because it's good to have friends push you out of your comfort zone. But in other scenarios, I push people and then they sort of are just doing it because I'm pushing them. But there's no real like love for it.
Yeah.
Which then kind of backfires on everybody because now they're doing something that it wasn't like they wanted to do deep down inside and they just needed a push. It was like they never really wanted to do it, but I pushed them.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing something they don't want to do, and I'm having to push.
Yeah.
And so it's not fun for either of us.
Yeah.
And so to sort of make sure that I wasn't doing that, I've put him in charge of getting our guests.
Yeah, I think that's a good move.
Yeah. So I told him to reach out to his friend and to let me know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm resisting every urge in my body to follow up with him and be like, hey, dude, because we're supposed to do it this Sunday.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just let.
And it's Tuesday night. It's Super Tuesday night.
Yeah, I would let the ball be in his court because he also has a lot going on.
Yeah, I know. It's just hard to do.
Yeah, it's a good challenge though for you, I think.
Yeah. It is a good challenge for me, I think, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Hopefully it works.
Hopefully. I don't know that I necessarily want to dive into this, but one other note that I have here is talking about ideas for doing Sundays at our friend's restaurant. So our friends...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so some of our friends here own a vegan walk-up sandwich shop. So there's no inside seating, but there's a patio area and there are picnic tables, several picnic tables, and they're not open in the evenings.
Yeah, they close at 5, I believe.
And they're not open Sundays. And so he had mentioned, like, if Tashina and I wanted to do something for fun,
Mm-hmm.
like, we could use their kitchen and sell something on Sundays or in the evenings, that we could basically run a business out of their business,
Mm-hmm.
have no overhead for rent. It would just be the two of us, so we'd have no overhead for employees.
Yeah.
And we could just make something fun. Like, I suggested cupcakes, and you and him said it was a terribly stupid
We
idea.
didn't say it was terribly stupid. We suggested something more portable and suggested, like...
Cupcakes are
Like
so
little-
portable.
No, they're huge.
No.
Cupcakes are like, I need a knife and fork. You saw... I ate
Maybe
my
for
mini
people
marshmallows
with
in
people
bites.
with child-sized mouths.
Yeah.
Maybe those people would need a knife and a fork. But normal-sized human people, everyone else,
Everyone
they're
else.
so portable.
Anyway, he and I were saying so it might be fun to do something totally different that no one else is doing here. But I'm open to options.
Whatever.
I had suggested maybe mini cupcakes.
Whatever.
Whatever.
Mini cupcakes are dumb. Here's the problem with mini cupcakes. It takes the same amount of effort to make the batter and the frosting, but then multiple times more effort to actually make so many smaller ones and then decorate so many smaller ones.
Mm-hmm. But don't cupcakes, aren't those super time consuming for the decoration and everything too?
But that's my point though, is for every normal cupcake, you have to do 4 times that for a small one.
Which
Can I say one other thing?
Mm-hmm.
My other problem with it is that how much can you sell a tiny cupcake for? $1? Like $1.25, I think, would be pushing it. So then it's like, how many tiny cupcakes would we need to sell?
Yeah.
To make it even worth the Lyft ride to get there and get home? Like,
Totally.
it would be insane.
Yeah, I mean, that's why my primary suggestions were things that didn't involve decoration. They'd be simpler,
Like what?
like mini cheesecakes or mini pies.
That sounds so labor intensive.
It's not. Cheesecakes and pies are so easy.
Maybe you should do it then.
I don't want to do it
Why not?
because it's not.
Because it's so labor intensive?
Because it's labor intensive and it's like I've never baked on scale.
Mm.
You know, like
Yeah.
I didn't work food service. Well, I worked at a cookie shop for like a week. So I didn't really work food service at all, but I worked retail for a long time. So I like the
Not the
customer
same thing.
service part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
That's
true.
what I'm saying. It's not the same thing.
Yeah. I'm sure you'd be great at it. You're great at everything you do.
I'm not, but thank you.
Everybody loves you.
Debatable. Highly debatable, but that's okay.
So, Yeah, I don't know what we would sell out of there.
I don't know either.
They also suggested that we could just like bring a cart
Mm-hmm.
and set up shop during their business hours.
Yeah, like a little table.
As long as we're not selling sandwiches,
Yep.
then yeah, nothing we do is. Which I still love the idea of like having a little kombucha cart.
You've talked about that for a long time.
I know. It would be so fun.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that, though, well, I guess if it was being served on tap, this wouldn't be an issue. But otherwise, the issue with that would be purchasing all the bottles.
Yeah, and sanitizing them.
Right. Yeah.
And storage, like, I feel like that's very intensive.
Yeah.
I think anything regarding that requires a lot of thinking and a lot of planning and a lot
Kombucha?
of research. No, selling a food product.
Oh.
Like,
Do you think I should do a kombucha cart?
I think it'd be cool.
I think it'd be so rad.
It'd be rad, yeah.
It'd
It
be
would rad.
amazing
Yeah.
to do a kombucha cart.
What would that mean though? Like you would have a keg of kombucha? Like how do you envision this?
Yeah, I envision it as a cart that has one to three kombucha flavors in it that people can get on draft.
So being that we're in Utah, I have to raise the question of the alcohol content. How would you...
It wouldn't exceed the level that's...
Okay, like you would just want fermented as long as... Bless you.
Oh, sorry.
Bless you.
Oh, man. Whew.
You took off.
Sorry,
Did you
Junie.
see her? She skid as she ran around
The-
the shoebox.
Those sneezes, because I was trying to hold them in, like, hurt my abs and my chest. Anyway.
Anyway, we don't have to get into that now, but that's what I mean by I just think anything would take some research.
Yeah.
Consideration.
Part of why the kombucha cart appeals to me, too, is because we have so many friends in the wine and beer industries.
Yeah.
And people out here that are home brewers that have competed and won awards that I feel like if I had the recipe, it would be pretty easy to say, how do I go from this jar on my countertop to a mini, a half keg
Yeah.
that's coming out of a spout? And then I'd get like the cheapest fucking like garbage used like ice cream cart or something. Because Alex is super handy. So here's probably what I would do. I'd get one of those and just like gut the motherfucker, right? Because as long as it's got a cooling system inside.
Yeah.
So I just fucking gut it, put all the things in, and then for the outside of it, it wouldn't matter what it would look like because probably what I would do is get like either pallet wood or like other reclaimed wood and just like enclose it in wood and then just like burn it with a torch to make it look kind of, rustic.
Put a little umbrella on it for you. Protect you from the sun.
Sure, why not? And I would call it kombucha cart. I don't know what I'd call it.
Beautiful.
Yep. Maybe I'd call it kombucha and kittens. And I would partner up with a local adoption place and they could bring their kittens and people could drink kombucha and adopt kittens.
Very cute.
Full-grown cats.
Oh,
Not
no
kittens.
kittens anymore.
Kittens don't need help. Well, I mean, okay. Obviously, kittens need help getting adopted. But
Like senior
if we're
cats
doing
and
this
stuff.
on a scale of who needs it more, I think kittens are going to be fine relative to old-ass cats with, like, arthritis. Thoughts on that?
I think you're probably right.
Okay. Well, that's a great place to wrap it. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm tired.
Okay. Thanks for joining me, Tashina.
Thanks for joining me.
And thank all of you for joining us tonight.
ASMR is so creepy.
You're not going to whisper into the mic with me?
Thank you for joining us. I hate it. I hate it so much.